5:42. We'll do our business bulletin in the next few minutes, but let's sort of get a bit of a head start on it, shall we? Because the UK unemployment rate rose to 5% in the 3 months to November, as redundancies hit a record high. Official figures show 202,000 job losses compared to the previous quarter. The Office for National Statistics' latest figures show that more than 800,000 workers dropped off payrolls between February and December as lockdown restrictions were tightened across the UK. So all of this perhaps leads to financial difficulty for potentially thousands of people, and it means that debt help services are standing by, expecting a surge of up to 300% as people look for financial help. Matt Dronfield is with us from Debt Free London, a debt advice charity. Good morning, Matt.
Good morning, Calum.
So it sounds like charities like your own are really bracing for quite an influx of calls, actually, as a result of the pandemic. How are you preparing for this?
Absolutely. And before the pandemic, we know there was 1.4 million Londoners that already had a problem debt, and that was 8.3 million if you look across the UK. Now, 80% of those that we helped last year said that they worried about money quite often or all the time. Looking at the financial impact of COVID, it's been devastating. We know that there's close to 700,000 people in the UK that have been forced into poverty during the pandemic. Our recent statistics say that as many 15 million people now live in poverty, with some 9.6 million households incomes sitting 25% or more below the official definition of poverty. To put that into perspective, that's similar to pre-20th century levels of poverty. We spent last year, during our first and second lockdowns, recruiting and training another 80 debt advisors ready to prepare us. But at the moment, the number of calls we're actually seeing has been reduced as what you expect this time of year. So our concern is actually, whilst people understand that their debts are spiralling, they're putting their families and health, as you'd understand, first, but not dealing with these emergency debts. And what we really want to do to encourage people is to reach out to charities like ourselves and other free debt advice providers to seek the help that they need before there's an avalanche of clients that really need our help, and we won't be able to cope if everybody comes at the same time.
Yeah, what are, at times like this in a pandemic, are there leading causes of debt? So, we've mentioned unemployment clearly, but does that sort of translate into, for example, more use on credit cards or, falling behind on household bills? What are the key sources of household debt at the moment?
So the most common types of debt that we help are council tax bills and rent arrears. Between those two, that makes over 65% of the types of debts that we help with. The vast majority of our clients, almost 90%, live in rented accommodation. And since the pandemic, we've actually seen a 92% increase in clients that are looking for work or registered unemployed. So it's those housing costs that make up the majority of the debts, which are going to be massively affected by those that have lost their jobs during the pandemic. And whilst at the moment, with the government support systems like the furlough scheme and the ban on evictions, or the 6-month notice that landlords need to give for evictions, there's some breathing space available. But that will end soon. At the moment, those schemes look like they're ending in April. So we don't want people to wait for the last minute to reach out and seek that advice that they need. We can help, and our advisors are ready and standing by now. We're fortunate that in London, our advice service since the 11th of January has been open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in response to this growing crisis. So I really would encourage your listeners, especially if they live in London, to call our free phone number on 0800 808 5700 or visit our website at debtfree.london and seek that advice that they need.
Yeah, indeed. Matt, thank you very much. Thanks for being part of our programme this morning. Appreciate that. That's Matt Dronfield, head of the fully funded debt advice charity Debt Free London. Just interesting, isn't it? Because there's perhaps a bit of a narrative around the pandemic that actually it's been an opportunity for people to save money, perhaps at times feeling a little bit better off. But of course, don't forget the hundreds of thousands of people who have had problems with employment. And of course, as Matt was explaining, that then adds up, doesn't it, into problems elsewhere as well. This is Early Breakfast on Times Radio with Calum, Macdonald, in association with Dell Technologies, helping your small business grow. Our business bulletin comes next. It's 5:47.